Good morning and welcome to another Chip Chat. And with me this morning, I've got Grant from Stories for Games. Say hello, Grant.
Hello.
And obviously I'm here as well. Hello. And today we're going to be talking about two subjects. We're going to be talking about Star Wars Jedi the Fallen Order and the fact that it seems to be selling quite well in the face of EA telling us in the past that single-based story-based games are not what people want. So we're going to talk about that. And then once we've talked about that, we're going to move on to Google Stadia and the glorious launch that it's had. So strap yourselves in and prepare for that one, because I think Grant's got quite a bit to say about that one.
Just a bit.
But as I say, first, we're going to start with Jedi the Fallen Order and the fact that it started off really well, it seems. And I've got a quote here from businesswire.com. that says, in the first 2 weeks, EA achieves the fastest selling digital launch for a Star Wars game ever and becomes EA's top selling Star Wars title on PC in its initial launch window. And they were trying to stretch things out there to try and make it have some records that it could beat. But nevertheless, it does seem to have started really well. And I, for one, have bought the game, though I've not played it yet. And I think you haven't bought it or played it yet, have you, Grant?
I haven't, but hopefully going to be building a new PC soon, so it would be one of the first games that I pick up because it does look really interesting. Yeah.
And that, I mean, that's the thing. We've all been saying this on Discord and in various other places as well, on Twitter and all over the place, saying that, you know, this is actually a game that EA have put out that is actually a proper game. It's not a game of service. It's not full of microtransactions. It's just a straight up game. And given that EA have been telling us for, well, years now that we don't want single-player games, they've been telling us we don't want those, we want games as service, and we want microtransactions. Oh, sorry, not microtransactions. What were they called? I can't remember.
Oh, surprise mechanics. Yeah.
That's the one, surprise mechanics. Yeah, we want surprise mechanics and we want service-based games. We don't want single-player. So now they've released a single-player game, and it seems to be going quite well. And I mean, you know this, Grant, don't you? I mean, me and you have said for a long time, and we've talked with Sully and Count from the Gamecast guys, and we've all been saying that we like single-player games. And, you know, the games we like, I mean, we were talking beforehand, and I listed The Last of Us, Uncharted, Spider-Man, God of War, and you said Horizon. Yeah. And even, I mean, Respawn themselves, they released Titanfall 2 with a fantastic campaign, and okay, that didn't sell well because EA crushed it by releasing it between two behemoths.
That's right, yes.
But it actually yeah.
Kill your own game, basically.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was with that. It was like they were trying to murder the game because actually the game's got a really good story. It's short, but it's fun, and it's got some great mechanics in it. And I don't know if you've seen this, but I was watching some footage from the Fallen Order, and some of the mechanics that are used, like the wall running and stuff like that are in Titanfall 2, are in Fallen Order. So obviously it's got that same DNA, and so I can imagine I'm going to enjoy the game. But I mean, what do you think about this? What do you make of the fact that it seems to be selling well, and it seems to be going in the face of what EA have told us in the past?
I think it's testament to the fact that what we've had over the last year or two is we've had publishing companies like EA telling us what they think we want from a video game. And what this actually shows is what we actually want from a video game, because it shows that there's a real difference and a disparity in the sort of perception from the industry of what its customers want and what its customers actually want. And that difference is really being sort of illustrating how well this game is sold, because, you know, it's like we say, it's a single player game. It doesn't have any, as far as we know, it doesn't have any microtransactions. I mean, I don't know if it has anything cosmetic that you can buy. I know you can customize your character, but I don't think you can even actually buy anything. I think it's literally everything is earned in game. And I think it just shows that there's a huge swathe of gamers out there that don't want anything to do with games as a service. They just want a game that's a complete product that they can buy and play, you know, and enjoy within its own sort of kind of like ecosystem, if you like. So I think it's a great sign that gamers are sort of intelligent enough to sort of want something which has basically been kind of like the bread and butter of the industry for years, which is a complete product that they want to play from start to finish. And I think it really does show how important that is still for gamers. There are, of course, there are people that want multiplayer games, but there are massive amounts of people, you know, maybe they fit a certain sort of group of gamers that want single player games. I mean, yeah, I like multiplayer games, but I like them less as I get older because I'm not as good at them at multiplayer games. So for me, it's not as enjoyable as sitting down and playing something like this, which is a good quality, you know, single player game.
And that's the thing for me, isn't it? We want a varied diet.
Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of foods I like. I love curry, but I wouldn't want to eat curry for breakfast, dinner, and tea every single day.
You get pretty sick of it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I don't, you know me, I used to play a lot of online games for a while. Certainly, I was talking with Sully about this the other day. And certainly in the 360 generation, played a lot of online games. But even then, going through that period, I still wanted to play single-player games, you know, quite a bit. And I played, still, even then, was playing a lot of single-player games.
Yeah.
And this generation, it's been really frustrating because I don't know if you feel like this, but I felt a lot of the time I'm scrabbling around to actually find something I want to play. There's plenty of games out there.
Yeah.
We're not short of games, but the kind of games, and especially shooters, often now the idea of playing a story-based shooter is just non-existent, or it has been up until recently. And I know this isn't a shooter, but, you know, I just feel, I really hate this idea that we're being told what we want.
Yeah. I mean, it works in other industries. And, okay, so if you think of something like fashion, that is led by the industry kind of dictating trends, but with gaming it's very, very different because it's led by consumer demand as much as anything, you know. And I think the reason why this game's been successful is there's a number of things, but from what I can see is it marries sort of like these different genres of games together into one. So it's going to attract people who like, say, the Souls games because the game is apparently quite difficult, and it has that element of difficulty that people that play the Souls games might like. It has that Uncharted kind of platforming element, so you're going to get people who like that. And of course, the story-driven element as well. So it's like a sort of successful marriage of all these different sort of things into like this one product. And also it's got, of course, the biggest thing it's got is the Star Wars license. And I think people have been crying out for a decent Star Wars game for years. I mean, we haven't had one. I mean, if you could say that we haven't had one since probably Jedi Academy or going back to the, you know, the PC days. Absolutely,
yeah. I mean, you know, the Star Wars Battlefront games that came out in recent years looked lovely. They looked gorgeous, but they were empty shells of games. There was very little to them. And, you know, we all know the debacle with Battlefront 2, and I think EA did us all a favour in a way by being so upfront and obvious with the monetization, because it really did cause a backlash.
The game was a joke.
It was, absolutely. And I wonder if maybe we wouldn't have had this game now if there hadn't have been such a backlash. I mean, maybe we would, I don't know.
It's hard to say, isn't it? Because it almost seems like this game's been designed and developed in isolation, because you think about, I mean, EA obviously had their multiplayer focus, and the original Battlefront, I say the original Battlefront, but I don't want to step on the toes of what is the original Battlefront, which is the 2004 game. And I realised I missed out that game when I talked about a decent Star Wars game. That one that was released on the 360 gen, I think. Would it be the 360 or no? Just before that, I think.
Yeah, the original Xbox.
So original Xbox PS2 Battlefront, which you look at that game, that's very player focused. It's got so many different Star Wars elements in one game. You know, you can play in third person, first person. You've got sort of like strategy elements. You've got first person elements. That's an example of how a very player focused game, customer focused, and that's where the industry used to be. It used to be all about giving people the most complete experience in a video game, and it changed, and it became, you know, since games like, you know, I hate to pick on Destiny because Destiny is certainly not the worst culprit, but it almost started a trend of games as a service where all publishers wanted to look at was that model. And it seemed like there were outliers like Sony, obviously, with their first party exclusives on the PS4. They've gone very much, you know, single player focused.
Thank goodness.
But pretty much everyone else has gone the opposite way. You know, it's,
yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. Do you think that Fallen Order is just a blip from EA? Or will we see a Fallen Order 2 if this continues to sell well?
If I'm being optimistic, then I think we will see a Fallen Order 2 that's pretty similar to Fallen Order in terms of its like makeup. But my fear is that EA would not really understand why this game's been successful. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I mean, I think they do. I mean, I'm not trying to sort of. I mean, they're obviously not stupid. They make a lot of money as a company. They have good people working there. But I mean, yeah, that's all the credit I'm going to give them, because the rest of the time that it's been all about getting as much money from gamers as possible. And that still is pretty much their focus, let's be honest.
Exactly. I mean, when you see that they've moved the guy who was in charge of FIFA to being like the guy who oversees all their productions.
Oh, dear.
And, you know, when you hear that they have an investors meeting and they're saying that we're going to double down on games as service, it does make you worry, and it does make you think that they really aren't paying any attention whatsoever to either the gamers or some of the developers who work for them, because you can bet your bottom dollar that there are people who work for Respawn and the other, you know, companies that are under EA, under the umbrella of EA. You can bet your bottom dollar there are people there that are gamers and developers first, and business comes second. Look, business always has to be part of it. You don't want a game coming out and not making money.
Of course.
But, you know, as Jim Sterling says, you know, I'm paraphrasing him, but, you know, it's one thing making money, but they want all the money.
Yeah, exactly. There's this huge sense of greed, isn't there? You know, the cynical way of looking at it might be that they developed the sequel to Fallen Order, and it's very similar to the first game, but they use it as a kind of way of saying to gamers, well, look, you know, we're not that evil a company. We do these single player games as well. So it becomes like this, I don't know, there's something they dangle in front of like consumers and the press to make out as if they're really, you know, single player focused as a company, when really it's just one game. It's one title amongst many, you know, and the rest of their output stays exactly the same. It stays focused around microtransactions, like it's pretty much has been for the last 5 to 10 years, you know. So yeah, you know, you've got the fact that you moved this guy, like you say, into this position where he's overseeing all of so is he overseeing all of EA's like studio output? As
I understand it, yeah.
So you can't think that that's not going to have an effect on even Respawn. I mean, Respawn. Let's give them the credit, okay? You know, Respawn made this game. You know, EA have benefited from the good press around it, but Respawn are a very, very good developer. They made Titanfall 2, which had a brilliant single-player campaign, albeit a little bit short. And by the way, it's free on PS Plus this month, I think, Titanfall 2.
Oh, is it?
So if you haven't played it, just play it because it's amazing. But yeah, they've made another good single-player game. Their skills lie in this area, you know. I wonder if they were under the umbrella of someone else, like Sony, we wouldn't really be having this discussion, would we? It's the fact that it's under EA that it makes you wonder if it's going to continue. They're going to continue to be able to make single-player games without anything sort of stuffed into them, anything EA-like.
This is the worry with Jedi the Fallen Order, because they do seem to be completely deaf, and you know, they are very much money focused, and the investor calls seem to be more important than anything else.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this game goes on to be very successful, but obviously it isn't going to make the kinds of money that you would get from FIFA. I mean, nothing makes the sort of money that FIFA does, I don't think. But if it's not, you know, even close, it makes the sort of money that you would expect from a one-off sale. And then they come to making Jedi the Fallen Order 2 or whatever they want to call it. And the pressure is on Respawn to, well, we can make more money out of this. Look at how popular it's been. There's a ready audience. We can shoehorn some microtransactions in there, put in some cosmetics. And do you know what? With EA's DNA as it is currently, I could very well see that happening. And that scares me a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, they've got a history of doing that, haven't they? If you look at the Dead Space franchise, you know, I played Dead Space for the first time this year. You know, I can tell it's been a slow year for games when you have to go back to like 10-year-old game. I mean, the game holds up incredibly well on PC for a 10-year-old game, I'll say that. But okay, so I played Dead Space and I played Dead Space 2, and everyone said don't play Dead Space 3, and I'm like, well, I wasn't going to, but then I had a good look as to why. And because EA took the Dead Space franchise, and sort of stuffed as many microtransactions into the third game as they possibly could. And this is going back to 2013, you know. So obviously at that time they'd been doing that to FIFA, but they took a look, like you say, at all their other franchises and they thought, well, what can we do to this? So yeah, the problem is they have a history of taking single player games and just basically pulling them apart in order to facilitate as many additional income generators as they can. And they ruined Dead Space by making it, well, partly by making the game almost like full of QuickTime events, which it never used to be. So they changed the design of the game, and then they made it about as many cosmetic microtransactions as possible, because,
put simply, they eviscerated it and then murdered it.
Yeah, exactly. and they got a hell of a lot of resentment from gamers for doing that, because the first two games were great. They were highly rated critically. And the third game just was a shit sandwich, basically.
and that's exactly why I'm worried.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we're in a different time now. Things have moved forward, and microtransactions and monetization and games as service are much more prevalent now, especially with EA, than they were back then with Dead Space. And so a game that comes out like this, that looks like it's a kind of brief glimmer of what we could be getting from EA if they stop focusing so much on bloody money and actually focused on making some good games. And you know my view on EA with FIFA and how that game seems to have suffered from their focus on monetization. Yeah. But, you know, given that their focus is entirely on monetization for the most part, this game, it could be that it sends a message to them. But it could have completely the opposite effect. And if that happens, then you know, I don't know. I've bought the game. I broke my own self-imposed embargo on EA games to buy it. But maybe the message I'm sending them is not the one that I want to send them.
Yeah, but you're probably thinking, well, you know, you probably picked up the game because you thought, well, actually, this is a single-player game. This is right up my alley. And, you know, I'm guessing a lot of people who felt the same way towards EA as you have done something similar. They picked the game up as well, because it's very much an un-EA like game, because it's just a straight single player game. If anything, it's like a Sony game. It's like a first party PlayStation game. But you know, and that's good. I mean, there are positives to it. There are a lot of positives to it. I mean,
but it does give us a glimmer of precisely what EA, and certainly the companies working under EA, the developers working under EA, are capable of if they would only be allowed to make games.
Well, I get the impression they were left alone to pretty much develop this. I don't think EA got involved very much at all in the development.
Yeah, I think they created quite a lot of. I mean, maybe the time frame's different than what I'm thinking, but maybe they created a lot of space for themselves with Apex and the.
Yes, actually, that helps. That probably helps the fact they've got. I mean, Apex has been pretty successful. I mean, yeah, it's. People say, oh, it's not doing as well as Fortnite, but yeah, Fortnite's a behemoth. It's like a huge kind of. You know,
I mean, nothing's doing as well as Fortnite. Let's be honest.
You know, the fact that they've even managed to carve out a niche in that space is a success. And you know, and Apex does have a very solid player base still. You know, a lot of people have said, "Oh, it will drop off." Yeah, it did drop off a bit, but not as much as others have said it would. So they've done well with Apex. They did well with Titanfall. Despite what happened to Titanfall 2, it was a good game. You know, it was well received by critics and fans who actually played it and bought it. I think it still sold like 9 million copies or something, but according to EA, that was like a failure. So I don't know what they were expecting from it. The multiplayer actually is very good in Titanfall 2. I only played a bit of it, but it's a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh God, the multiplayer in Titanfall 2 is fantastic. Yeah. I let my boy play it. I shouldn't, but I did. I tend to let him play these games when he's sat with me. I won't let him play him on his own. But tends not to use a mic when he's playing it. But because kid playing with adults and the swearing and stuff that goes on, I'm not that keen on him having that. But so he just plays on his own, not in a squad or whatever, and plays that way. And he loved it. And I used to play. We played it a bit together as well, and I used to play it a bit. I was rubbish at it, but I used to play it a bit. It's a fantastic multiplayer.
Yeah, there's a lot of variety to it, and the running, and the fact that the pilots are so maneuverable, they could just like run across buildings and things, and then you got the ability to summon the mechs, and I thought it was just great. I only played like 4 or 5 hours.
The whole package was great.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, really well done. I thought so. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I don't think it's going to start a trend where everyone goes, "Oh, look, let's stop making games as a service and all focus on single player games." I don't think that's going to happen. But I think it's fantastic that this game is selling well, and I'm really glad that it's selling well. And I just hope that we get a sequel that's not been interfered with at EA.
Yeah.
But,
let's hope EA get the message.
Absolutely.
And that they actually take on board what people are trying to tell them, and have been trying to tell them now for years.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I was just to sort of reiterate what you say. Yeah, people have been saying this to EA for years, and a lot of the time they've been turning a deaf ear because of the fact they're focused on this FIFA model that they admitted they wanted to just inject into almost every game. The joke is like, if you put a single player game before EA's board, it's like, well, how can we monetize this? Is like the first thing they say. That's
the stories that have been coming out, isn't it?
Exactly.
I mean, this is not just speculation. We've actually heard people say this. They present an early build of a game, and they're like, well, how are we going to monetize this?
Where's your version of Ultimate Team?
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane.
Dear.
And,
sad.
But
it's a reality as well, isn't it?
Yeah. But it does. It makes you realise that the suits running EA and the people on the board and stuff have no real understanding of what games are and what gamers want.
Yeah.
And on that note,
what gamers want, yeah.
Let's move on to another company that don't seem to understand what gamers want, and that's Google with Stadia and the, well, as I said before, the spectacularly successful launch.
Yeah. So, sorry. Did they actually launch it?
Yeah. Not according to a lot of the people who didn't actually receive their founders packs.
Yeah,
no.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah. What did they get? What should they have got?
I mean, I'm just gonna. What I'll do is I'll quickly run through some of what's happened, and then we can talk about it in a bit more detail. We all know, I mean, I said this to you before, it had a poor launch lineup, and they tried to tack a few more games on, which didn't actually make the lineup any better. They've only got one exclusive, and no one really cares about that exclusive. It's not something that's going to sell a system. They're expecting you to pay full price for the games. And then on top of that, people who ordered the pack, the founders pack, didn't receive it. And then some of them who did receive it didn't get their codes, so they couldn't play any games. And some people got their codes but didn't get the founders pack. And then when they got it and they set it up, they had problems setting it up because you had to use a phone to set it up, and it was really clunky. It wasn't like you plug it in, you put it into your TV, and away you go. No. It was. I watched some people trying to set it up, and if you didn't, know exactly what you were doing, you didn't spend hours looking it up and trying to find out how it worked. You could get yourself into all sorts of trouble because there were 2 apps you had to use and all this kind of stuff.
Really?
Oh yeah.
2 different apps. Oh,
it was a bloody nightmare. And then once you got it up and running, you found there's no achievement system. You can't share your game experiences. You can't go in and play with YouTubers like they were saying you would be able to. There's no split screen multiplayer, which wouldn't matter anyway. And I said this in one of my previous videos, wouldn't matter anyway because they weren't selling the controllers separately. So you only got the controller that came with your Chromecast. And the Chromecast was overheating as well, but we'll get to that.
I heard about that, yeah.
Oh, there was no Buddy Pass? I mean, it got ridiculous. The Founders Edition was the Chromecast that came with the Founders Edition would work with Stadia. But if you had a Chromecast already, that wouldn't work with Stadia, and it requires a firmware update that they haven't released yet.
So it just gets worse, doesn't it?
I mean, I've only scratched the surface, Grant. I mean, it's ridiculous.
I'm just trying to think. You see, I'm just thinking of other console launches, but of course, I'm talking of general console launches where there was actual hardware and games released. The one and only console that I've bought at launch is the Dreamcast. Now, I remember the Dreamcast launch in Europe. Okay, so it was released in America famously on 9/9/99. Okay, so that was the date. But when it got to Europe 2 months later, now there was supposed to be something like 12 games released at launch or something like that. We got about 3 because there were stock shortages from Sega. And not only that, there was like half the amount of consoles that was supposed to be available in Europe. So not many people got one. I managed to get one for some reason, probably because no one wanted one. And because all the shops were saying just wait for the PS2. But despite all that, despite the fact that I got one game with it, which was Sonic Adventure, which was the most broken excuse for a video game I've ever had the misfortune of playing, because it obviously needed about 6 months more testing, because the game basically had like a see-through world. You would fall through the map constantly. But basically, despite all that, that's still a better launch than Stadia.
Oh my God. I mean, I think I said this somewhere else as well. I actually got to the point where I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, Jesus Christ, this looks like it's making the PS3 launch look good.
Oh, yeah, the PS3,
and even the Xbox One launch look good.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, I would take those launches over the Stadia launch. And I mean, the thing that got me is you know, I've gone through some of the stuff, but it was just how bad it was before people even got playing the bloody thing. You know,
the sad thing is, we suspected this might happen, didn't we?
Exactly, and a lot of us were saying this beforehand, and you know, the thing that got me is we're warning about this, and loads of people were saying, you know, we're not ready.
Yeah.
You know, the whole idea of a streaming service replacing the more established forms of game distribution is just pie in the sky. And you know, we were talking about this beforehand, but I actually look at Microsoft's xCloud, and Microsoft xCloud has still got some of the inherent problems that we've got with Google Stadia, and these are problems that will be with any streaming service.
Yeah.
But the thing is, xCloud isn't the be-all and end-all of what they're offering.
Exactly.
Stadia, as you know, Google has put all their eggs in one basket, streaming or nothing. And from what I've heard, some people are getting nothing, even though they've paid for it. And that's the thing, they're paying for this. And they've made all these claims about you're going to get 4K, 60 frames per second. And then when people have plugged it in and actually got it running, after all the other things they've had to go through, it's not 4K and 60 frames per second.
No, that's the thing, isn't it?
Way below that. I mean,
it's 1080p, isn't it? For virtually everyone that's used
1080p, and people are getting, you know, what we would expect: latency, input lag. Yeah. It's a shit show.
I think even at its best, even at its best, the input lag is like 50 to 100 milliseconds, which for somebody trying to play a game is noticeable enough to make a difference. And that's the thing. It's like, even at its best performing, Stadia is just inadequate.
Yeah. And even the big claim that we may have thought, okay, they may be able to pull this off. I mean, I was skeptical about this, but some people thought, well, they might be able to pull off the graphics claims. But they haven't. Yeah. They lied.
Yeah, I mean, they did. They blatantly lied. Yeah.
It was a complete lie. I mean, you know, they were saying, was it Phil Harrison saying that all games will be 4K 60 at launch or something like that? And you look at Digital Foundry and what they were talking about, and Digital Foundry, as is always the case with Digital Foundry, they try and be, you know, honest, and they try and be fair. And they do. You know, they weren't trying to rip it apart at all. But the takeaway from it was that what they offered was not delivered in any way, shape, or form, and that's tragic. I mean, it's the worst. Well, you said this. It's got to be the worst release of a product I think I've ever bloody seen. It is,
and the thing is, what you're getting. I mean, there's one interesting thing I noticed, because I watched a couple of videos from some influencers who got sent stuff, obviously by Google. They got the Founders Edition sent to them. I think one of them was Alana Pierce, because she was talking about when you unbox it, she said it's very weird because you have to get your head around the fact that basically all you get is a controller in the box. So, I mean, Google have already got a challenge where they're trying to sell a system to people where there isn't a system. Yeah. There is basically a controller. So you've got that sort of psychological element where you're trying to say to people, well, this is our system, and this is like this little Chromecast Ultra thing that overheats and doesn't work. And by the way, you can't use your existing one. I mean, there's all these barriers in the way but they're putting them there themselves by their own kind of like failure to meet their own promises that they outlined, sort of a year ago, where the system was going to be this. And it's not even close to what they're saying it's going to be. And as a result, they're building up a lot of bad feedback from consumers and from the press because they're not fulfilling any of the promises. It's a really, really bad launch, and it's catastrophically bad. I can't get my head around how stupid they've been with this.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, it's sales 101, isn't it? You under promise and over deliver, and they've over promised to such a level that you can't, if their promises were a rocket, the rocket's gone off and it's gone into space and it's gone to another bloody solar system somewhere, because that's what the promise, what they were offering us was, don't reach for the sun, reach for the stars, guys, because this is going to be something that you've never experienced before. This is going to be the most amazing thing in your life. Never mind when your kid was born, Stadia's here, and then actually what they deliver is, wow, I mean, I'm sorry. You thought you were going to get a baby, and instead you've got a shit. It was appalling, and it just gets worse. And the thing for me, this is the thing that really gets me. A lot of the people that are now being very critical of this service, and I use the term in its broadest possible sense, are people who wanted to like it. That's the thing.
Yeah.
When I first heard the announcement of Stadia, I was like, this looks exciting. I had my concerns because obviously it's streaming and we all know that there could be some issues. But I think we all said in that video where that streaming is the future, that down the line we will all be streaming video games. I know some people don't like that idea, but down the line we will be. But things need to change first. And Google seem to have got into a market and tried to get in first, although they're not even first, because Sony have been doing it and Nvidia have been doing it, and we even go back to OnLive doing it years ago.
Oh God, yeah.
But they've tried to be the first in this new wave, if you like, of streaming services, with Microsoft doing it as well, and as I've already said, doing it better, even though it's currently in a beta, if you like.
Yeah.
And Amazon coming on board as well. And I think Google have looked at this and they thought, right, we're going to get first to the market. But there's no point being first to the market if what you deliver is so poor that you actually create a situation where people just don't want anything to do with it. Even down the line, they're going to have to work so bloody hard to make this service worthwhile. Because people have they've paid 120 quid for this to get it now. And they're being told, if you pay this 120 quid, you will get 4K and you will get 60 frames per second. And the reality is that you don't. And then if you try and use it on PC, you can't use the controller wirelessly. You have to plug it in because it only works wirelessly with Chromecast Ultra, and only the Chromecast Ultra that came in the box. And I mean, it just gets... the more you hear about this, the more it just... I cannot believe it. You can hear in my voice. I cannot believe how bad this has been.
I'm trying to think, right? If I'd have paid £120 and I'd been told by Google, like, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that. I mean, like, well, what am I paying for? What am I actually paying for?
Exactly.
Because it seems like nothing.
I mean, that was, for me, it was like, not only that, but the thing that got me was I'm thinking, there's all these possible issues, but I can deal with that. And I don't mind going in and playing with it and it not working perfectly. I'm fine. I'll pay the money and I'll see what it's like. And then I hear, well, actually, it's not a streaming service. You're just paying to be able to stream games. You still have to buy those games. And so you're paying this money up front.
Yeah.
And as you say, what exactly are you getting? Because the claims they made of 4K 60 and play anywhere, because you can't play anywhere. The only phone you can bloody use it on currently is a Google phone. So you're paying all this bloody money and you're getting... what are you getting for it? A controller and a Chromecast.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? It's like they made out as if you could play it on virtually any sort of system, TV, or anything. But no, suddenly it's only on a Google phone, and you can only use the controller if it's wired to a PC. And they made out as if you could use any controller at all, as long as it was synced up. And yeah, because someone pointed out that you've got Shadow of the Tomb Raider on there for £45. I mean, that game's been discounted for yonks on other systems. Who the hell's going to pay that for it?
You can get every game that's on there, bar, one or two, for less money elsewhere, and you will have a better experience playing them. So why exactly would you buy Stadia?
You will. And this is the thing, Izzy. They were up against it from the start, okay? So they wanted to be the first to market, but they've got no pedigree in games. So you've got to get over the hurdle that gamers are going to be suspicious of the fact that Google has no penetration in the video game sector at all. So they're not like Microsoft or Nintendo releasing this. That's a very different perception. People's perception of Microsoft's xCloud is very different from people's perception of Stadia. Mostly because xCloud actually fucking works. But
yeah, it does. And I've used it on a 5G network, a 5 gigahertz network in the home, via my router. And I've also used it on a 4G phone network as well, and it eats up bandwidth, and you soon run out of your data.
I bet it does on that.
The fact of the matter is that and like I say, I've not played Stadia, so I can't compare it directly with Stadia. I can only compare it to what people have said about Stadia. And my experience with xCloud was okay. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say it was stellar, it was perfect. But the reality is you're not paying for it.
No.
There's 50-odd games there, good games as well. The lineup is better than Stadia's lineup. Yeah. You're not paying for it because it's a test at the moment. And if you can, go and sign up for it. If you've got a Google, an Android phone, go and sign up for it, because you can get these 50 games and you can try them out for free. You will need an Xbox controller, but that's not a big deal at the moment. They are going to allow other controllers down the line. And I heard someone the other day saying that DualShock already works, but I've not tried that. But
okay,
I was playing this and I was thinking, actually, as an add-on to, say, Game Pass, because they're going to add it on to Game Pass. You're going to have Game Pass and xCloud. If you've already got Game Pass, xCloud is going to be there and you'll have your games for your phone and whatnot. But for now, you don't even have to have Game Pass. You can just go in and you can try out these 50 games. Whether you own the games or not, doesn't matter. You can try it out, and they're basically testing. And the reality is, it's a test. It's a bloody test. And from what I've seen of what people have said about Stadia, it works better. So you've got, 120 quid for Stadia, or nothing for xCloud as it currently stands. You've got better games on xCloud, and it seems to, and again, we're talking about streaming, so it's going to depend on the person and their network and, all the rest of it.
Exactly, yeah.
So some people have a better experience with Stadia and some will have a better experience with xCloud, but it comes back to that thing. With Stadia, you are paying to be a fucking beta tester.
Exactly right, and that's it in a nutshell. They basically, this isn't a proper launch; it's a half-assed beta launch at the best. Yeah, but the fact is, they're charging people extortionate amounts of money for basically what amounts to virtually nothing of a service. You could barely even describe it as a sort of bare-bones service, because you're getting, in some cases, 2-year-old games that, great if you want to play them. If you've been living under a rock for 2 years and you haven't seen any video games being released, then I'm sure Destiny 2 will look great to you. But for everyone else, it's like, what is the value in this product? Because at the moment, it looks like the worst value product I think I've ever seen.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've gone over this already, but when you got Destiny 2 and it's so touted that it's going to look better than the Xbox One X, and it comes out and it's running at 1080p and doesn't look as good as a standard Xbox, plus you've got lag, latency, input lag, all the rest of it. Because the controller is connecting directly to the internet, you've got those issues as well, and they maintain that it's directly to the servers, so you haven't got the issue of the controller connecting to an Xbox or to a PlayStation and then having to connect to the internet separately. And that all sounds very great in theory, but in reality, from what people are saying, it actually does introduce more latency. So
yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It is like more latency than there would be, like you say, if you had a local controller connected to your Xbox and then to the internet. It's like, then the whole idea was that it would be a seamless experience. But we knew, I think, and a lot of people did sort of make this point, that we knew that latency would be an issue, because of the fact of how the internet works.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
it's
just like what Google are going to wave their bloody magic wand. I mean, I was listening to Phil Spencer talking about this and talking about the ISPs and saying how they'd been relatively cooperative with them with xCloud. And you know, I'm watching him and I'm thinking bullshit. You know, but the fact is, whether it is, and I keep repeating this, whether it's Google Stadia or whether it's xCloud or whoever it might be, you have to get over this issue of the ISPs. You have to get over the issue of all these problems that are introduced. And it's not like with streaming media like films. You know, with films, they can buffer the film, so it'll start downloading in the background and you can start watching it when it's downloaded enough. So you've always got stuff downloading, so it gives you a smoother experience. And even there, sometimes when you get a bad connection, you can get buffering or whatever, and that happens less and less, but it still can. With gaming though, it has to be immediate. You can't have that buffering because you're talking, you know, with other people or with other systems. You're talking with the server, you're trying to have an input. So if there's any latency at all, you're going to notice it. And I know some people have said that the latency isn't all that bad, but I've seen people, I saw a video the other day where a guy was pressing the button and then it was like, oh, now it's jumped. Press the button. Oh, now it's jumped. And he was saying he couldn't even aim. He couldn't even aim. Yeah. And I had this when I tried to use xCloud on a 2.5 gigahertz connection in my home. And it says not to use a 2.5 gigahertz connection, incidentally, because it won't work well enough. But I thought I'll try it just to see. And I tried it and it was like that. You couldn't aim because you move your stick to aim, like I was playing Gears 5. You move your stick to aim and it starts to aim and you stop because you've reached the point where you want to aim at the thing that you're aiming at. And the actual reticule overshoots because there's input lag. We know we're going to get this. We know this is going to happen. Whatever Google say, it's bullshit. You can't wave a magic wand and make physics change. It's physics.
Yeah, it's like, well, what do they think they were going to achieve? I mean, what gets me as well is that Google's response seems to be pretty much, well, shrug their shoulders at the moment. You know, you've got people that have basically pointed out the fact that the 4K is not a reality, and instead of Google apologising, they're just not. They just don't.
Well, it's typical bloody Google, isn't it? And this is the other issue, is that, you know, you and me trying to make our way with YouTube channels have realised time and time again that Google don't take any notice to the actual people that matter.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about EA not listening. Google don't listen.
No, they don't.
They're not interested in what you or I have to say. They're not interested in what the customer has to say.
No.
But, you know, I have to say this. If they're not careful, this is going to come back and bite them on the arse, because this isn't like YouTube. They haven't got the monopoly.
No.
They can't dictate how things happen.
No.
They are going to sink without trace. And I'll tell you now, all those people who've spent money on Google Stadia and they've bought games, they need to worry, because if this carries on like this, Google will kill it.
Yeah, they will. They've done it before. That's like they say. They have a history of this. You know, Google Glass, Google Plus. That doesn't work the way you want it. Let's just get rid of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole website, isn't there, that's dedicated to all the things that Google have killed.
Yeah, and they're.
I mean, you know, I think Google have killed more products than Hitler killed people.
See, it's getting that way, isn't it? The perception is that Google. They don't seem to. I don't know what it is. They don't seem to have like this coordinated way of releasing and marketing their products that other companies seem to. So if you think of like things like Google Glass, Google Plus was going to be the big Facebook killer or Twitter killer, and it was just not even a drop in the ocean. Social media. So you know, there's genuine concern. You know, like you say, people who bought this product should have genuine concern that if Google don't pull their fingers out to turn this ship around, within 6 to 12 months, it might not even exist.
Yeah,
you know, because if they've lost so much goodwill from this crappy half-assed launch that they need to do a hell of a lot to change people's perceptions of this product already. And I really think they should have put off the launch because it just isn't remotely ready. It's not even close to being ready.
I'll go as far as to say I'd be surprised if it's ready 9 months from now.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, totally.
The alarm bells first started to ring for me when they did the first big announcement thing, and somebody came on and started talking about they formed a studio to make games for Stadia. It's like, hold on, it's due to come out in 3 to 6 months' time, and you've just started a studio? Yeah, the games that you're making there are going to come on stream in 6 months, aren't they? I mean, come on. It shows a complete lack of understanding of game development, for crying out loud.
Yeah, exactly.
If they want to make a AAA game, it's going to take them, 2 years, 3 years, maybe more?
Well, yeah, that's the general lead time for AAA games. I mean, what do they think they're going to knock one out in 6 months?
But this is the thing. I think some of this stems from the fact that they are an internet company. And, it's all, a lot of it with internet companies is smoke and mirrors. They've never actually had to produce anything. And when push comes to shove and they've actually had to make something that actually does do what it says on the tin, well, we've seen the result, haven't we? They failed dismally.
I think what they could have done, and maybe what they should have done, is concentrate on what they're good at. Like you say, so they're an internet company, so they could have produced like the infrastructure for Stadia and just got other people that were experts at making games to make the games and provide them. I mean, it's kind of what they're doing, but they're doing it in a very sort of limited way. So,
well, arse about face, I think, is the term.
Yeah. So instead of thinking, oh, we'll make a games company, it's like, we'll just concentrate on making it work to start with, because you obviously haven't spent enough time and money on that aspect. Do you know what? The most important.
Absolutely. And do you know what got me the other day? When I was watching, who was it? Gamers Nexus. I was watching Gamers Nexus. I don't know if you know Gamers Nexus. They do a lot of PC stuff. I have heard of the Gamers Nexus, actually. Yeah, I know. And they had a thing with Jay's 2 Cents where they were doing LM2 call-in on CPUs, and they were basically having a competition between them, and it was all a bit of fun. But they got hold of Stadia, and he wasn't too pleased with it. He had problems. He had to get a code from a guy online he spoke to who had a code, and they let him have the code so he could actually try out Stadia because he didn't get his own code sent to him, and it was a nightmare. But he, as is a lot of the time with these hardware sites, these hardware YouTube channels, they do teardowns of stuff. So he decided he was going to do a teardown of the Google Stadia controller. And did you see this?
No, what happened?
It was he basically tried to do a teardown. Now, normally when you do a teardown of a controller, you find.
Oh, is he the one who took it apart and? I think I
well, basically what happened is he started to try and do the teardown, and normally when you do a teardown, as I say, you would find where the screws are to unscrew it, and you unscrew it and you start taking it apart. And normally the first ones are quite difficult because you're not sure what you're doing, but then after time people realise how it works and all the rest of it. And he started doing this teardown on the Google Stadia controller, and in the end he had to take a bloody heat gun to it. To try and he had to melt it to actually be able to get into the bloody thing. He managed to find a screw, undid the screw, nothing happened. And when he finally got it apart, the actual clips holding it on make it almost impossible to take apart. And now look, I know that when you first get the product, it's going to be in warranty and you wouldn't ideally want to take it apart. But down the line, when it's out of warranty, you might want to fix it yourself. I've fixed Xbox controllers before, I've fixed any number of different products before myself. And so I was looking at this and I was looking at the teardown, but the thing that really struck me, and I was thinking about this morning, I was looking at it and I was thinking, you know what, this is like a phone. This is like the way phones are constructed now. They don't want you getting into it. They don't want you... And I thought, that's exactly what Google are, aren't they? From a hardware perspective, they're a bloody phone company. And they're doing exactly what Apple and all these companies do. They're making it so you can't get in and you can't have any hands-on. This whole idea, right from the beginning of Google Stadia, seems to me that they're keeping the customer at arm's length. That, you don't have any say, you don't have any real interaction. And I don't like that ethos. I don't like that way of doing things. And
no, I don't.
Google take it to the nth degree. They're almost as bad as bloody Apple, it seems to me.
Well, they've learned from Apple. I mean, Apple were sort of the kings of that sort of approach, which basically says, no, you can't fiddle with our products. You can't take them apart. we want you to upgrade. We don't want you to sort of customizing this product because this product is being sold to you as a complete deal, and then in 3 years' time we'll tell you it's out of date, and so you've got to upgrade. It's that sort of mentality that I don't like. And it used to be the complete opposite with Apple and other companies. It used to be that they had modular design systems, where bits, you could pull apart and put other bits back in to upgrade it. That was the understanding. It was like the PC hobbyist industry, but that seems to have changed. And yeah, like you say, Google are not interested in that because that doesn't make them money.
Exactly.
They want, they don't want you fiddling.
I have to say, though, given how many I was listening to people talking about when they had problems with their codes and they hadn't received their Founders Edition and all the stuff, and trying to get through to Google to try and get something happening and get things moving and get things sent out. And it was like, oh, well, it will have been sent out to you, and no one actually answering the questions. Or it's a bit like, again, going back, what it's like when you have a problem with YouTube and you're trying to get an answer and you just get nothing. And that's their approach, it seems, to customer service too. And so you've got a controller that you can't take apart yourself, which you might want to because you can't actually get in touch with them to try and get anything sorted out. So if your controller breaks, you're buggered. And then, that's the attitude you come up with. And then, like I say, you can't actually get it sorted by them. So you go to do it yourself because that's the only recourse left to you, and you can't even get into the bloody thing. And that, to me, that kind of sums up, it sort of encapsulates the whole problem with this service from beginning to end. Their attitude, it's their attitude. They've carried over that attitude that they had on YouTube, and they seem to think that they can bring this to Stadia. And it makes me, I'm sorry, but it makes me angry, actually. I'm sick of them.
Well, it's terrible. It's an awful launch, and they've just screwed a hell of a lot of people with a half-assed product. So, they shouldn't have any sympathy as far as I'm concerned. They sort of, they behaved appallingly, basically.
It's awful on every level. But yeah, and I've put this on my notes. I just noticed my notes here. There's still people now. There's still people defending it. There were people defending it before it came out and telling us that it was going to be, the best thing since sliced bread. And then it comes out and it's not the best thing since sliced bread. It's the worst thing since fucking moldy bread. It's just one of the worst products that I've ever fucking seen. And they're still defending it, and you saw on my YouTube, I did on the fake unboxing that I did, and I had a couple of people coming on there and getting pissy with me because the worst video I've ever seen or something. I think one of them said to me.
Sense of humour bypass,
yeah, and I think my response to him, well, it's quite fitting because it's the worst video ever about the worst product ever.
Exactly.
And but people are defending this. I mean, I saw one thing. There was and I think this was a joke. There was a picture of a broken Switch cut in half, and someone saying, "I no longer need this because I've got Google Stadia." And
yeah, exactly. That's quite appropriate, really, isn't it?
Like I say, I think that was I think someone was taking the piss there. But people have been genuinely defending it, and I mean, it redefines the whole idea of defending the indefensible. I said this. I think I said this to you before we start, but there seems to be that there's some people out there who they sign up to some fanboy waiting list or something. They sign up to a fanboy waiting list and then they wait to be assigned a product. And then they get assigned a product. They must be sitting there thinking, please not Google, please not Google, please not Google. I don't want to have to be a fanboy for Stadia. And then they get Stadia and then Stadia, best thing ever. Don't you dare have a go at Stadia. It's like...
Yeah, I know. Heaven forbid.
What is wrong with these people? It's obviously shit. It's like you buy it. It's like you're selling your car. You sell your car to some guy. He drives up the road and all 4 fucking wheels fall off. And he's going, no, still a great car. It's brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's got a fucking... have you heard the stereo? Stereo's fucking brilliant. Okay, it'll only play one CD and all the others skip, but it sounds fucking brilliant. Well, the speaker in the back's not working. But no, it sounds fucking brilliant. And have you seen the electric windows? The one in the front works.
Yeah.
This is the level of fanboyism we're getting now from people that they will defend even things that they are admitting are broken and trying to pass it off as somehow it's not really broken, it's a feature.
Yeah, it's a feature. Oh God,
it's
not that old chestnut.
Monty fucking Python, beautiful plumage, but it's fucking dead.
Yes, exactly. Oh my God, the denial is just incredible. It makes you wonder about some people's cognitive abilities, doesn't it?
It does make you wonder, doesn't it? It does. It seriously makes you wonder. And I've
expired.
It's fucking snuffed it. Yeah.
This shouldn't be the Google Stadia. It should be called the Google DOA or something. I don't know. Because it's just not much of a product, is it? I mean, it's a more accurate description of what it actually is.
Yeah. And they might turn it round. I haven't got a lot of faith that they will turn it round. They might.
No, I don't either.
But, I think the first thing they need to do is have a reassessment of the pricing model, really.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the fact is you have to buy the games on top. I don't understand that because every other service, Google, hello, Microsoft, Xbox, Game Pass, PlayStation, you don't have to buy the games separately. They're included as part of what you pay. I mean, you look at Game Pass. Game Pass looks like the most phenomenal value ever out of anything when you consider you're paying for the PC version. Yeah, I mean, even the PC version, which is the smallest one in terms of games available, you still only pay $3.99 a month, UK pound sterling, obviously, and you don't have to pay for the games separately. They're included. You're getting AAA releases like The Outer Worlds put on there.
Yeah.
Which you can play. And Google are trying to push this product where they're making you pay £120 and then buy the game separately. And no, you can't have 4K, so piss off. I mean, it's like the customer is like the worst. It's some sort of inconvenience to them.
Yeah, it is. It's just like that. Yeah. Oh, man.
It's just incredible. I just can't believe it. I literally can't believe it, how bad it is.
I mean, it is. I mean, for me, I look at it and I'm just thinking, my God, I mean, even if they maybe hadn't done they don't have to necessarily do a Netflix model. If they'd have gone with, say, like the Amazon model, which I'm not so keen on, but at least with the Amazon model, you get, with Amazon Prime, you get a certain amount of product is part of your fee. And then there's other premium stuff that you can pay extra for, like some of the newest film releases or whatever. And then later on down the line, they will go free as well. You get this with Sky, you've got the movie releases and you can pay for those movie releases and you can watch those movies then. You can either buy them to keep or you can buy them to rent. And then later on down the line, they become part of the service. So if you're prepared to wait, you can actually still play those for free. So that model already exists out there. It's not my favoured model. I prefer the Netflix model. But if you're going to do something like that, at least offer some people a bone. Give them something that draws them in. You go, oh, yeah, I'd like to play that. Oh, that one's free. Good. Okay, that one I have to pay for. But I'll play this one. And then if I feel like it, I'll buy that one later down the line. Or I might wait and see if it comes free.
Yeah, at least there's something that you get for your money. And, there's an incentive maybe if you want to spend outside of that system, like you say. I mean, even that, although it's not ideal, it's still better than the Google model. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it's like we're doing you a favour. You're getting Destiny for free. Here you go. It's like,
whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, it's like,
how old is Destiny now? Yeah.
Oh, Jesus.
Creak. Yeah.
But anyway, I suppose we've pretty much ripped Google Stadia to shreds. And I'm hoping that we won't hear any more crap about it, that it won't actually continue to get worse, because that's the other thing. Every time I hear something about it, I hear something worse, something more, something extra. I mean, they are adding more things to the service. It's just more shit.
Yeah, that's it.
I just hope that I don't want it to fail. I want it to turn around. I want it to be a good service. But like I say, they do need to sort out their pricing model. They do need to sort out their streaming. There's so many things they need to sort out. And I'm wondering if they can actually do it while it's live, or whether they will lose so many people before they can sort it out that it's going to be, dead. But we'll see, I suppose.
It remains to be seen, doesn't it? It remains to be seen what action they take over the coming months.
But they do need to be really, really proactive.
Definitely.
Yeah. But anyway, I suppose that's it. I am going to go and grab myself a cup of tea. I don't know what you're going to do, Grant. What are you going to do?
Well, I've got a couple of missed calls. One from my bank, strangely enough. I don't know why they're calling me, so I better go and find out what that's about, I guess.
Oh, well, hopefully it's not them saying that you've inadvertently had a load of money taken out to buy games on Stadia.
Yeah, that would be my worst nightmare.
And now, in the latest Stadia story, they've been siphoning money from people's bank accounts who didn't sign up for the service.
Yeah, randomly. Yeah.
I wouldn't put it past them, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh, God. You imagine.
Yeah. Oh, dear. Anyway, I think that's it. And as I say, I'm going to go and grab us a cup of tea, and I will speak to you guys in the next one. Cheers, Grant. Bye.
Bye-bye.